Okay, hello YouTube. Today I'm going to be talking about the Hans Niemann Magnus Carlsen controversy, and this is probably going to be the last video that I'm going to do on this particular controversy. I'm going to be talking about Hans Niemann's so-called unprecedented rating rise, and we're going to be taking a look at that and trying to analyze and see if this is really an unprecedented rise in rating. And I'm also going to give you my kind of hypothesis on why I think we haven't really heard anything from the tournament organizers, or why we haven't heard anything from Magnus Carlsen's camp yet, and why I don't necessarily think that we will hear anything definitive, or at least not something that we want in the next, however long, maybe the next week. So if you like this kind of content and you want to see more of it, please hit that subscribe button and click on your notification icon. So in this video, I'm not going to be going over any games. I'm not going to be doing any analysis. Really, we're just going to be analyzing kind of these graphs, these charts here, these rating charts. And this is a claim that was made by Hikora Nakamura that the rating progress of Hans Niemann was totally unprecedented. So keep in mind, you have to keep in mind the messenger for he was basically just riffing on a subject. And he also said in that comment, he said, it's very common for people to become grandmasters at, 13, 14, 15. And it's not very common for people to become grandmasters after that age, that it's just unprecedented for anybody to rise, once they hit their late teens. So Nakamura's perspective is kind of, skewed, from his own personal life experience. Nakamura himself became a grandmaster at a very, very young age. And at the time, I believe he was the youngest grandmaster in the world at the time. He actually broke the record. And he was part of that generation that just kind of, everybody just kept breaking the record and becoming the youngest or the second youngest grandmaster in the world. Magnus Carlsen himself was one of the youngest grandmasters in the world when he achieved the title. But this is, a very recent phenomenon where grandmasters are becoming grandmasters younger and younger. When Fischer was a grandmaster at 15, at the time that was the youngest grandmaster in the world. And even today, it's still not common. It's not the way most people get their grandmaster titles. It's, more common for people to get their grandmaster titles after 15 than it is for them to get their grandmaster titles before 15, if you just take a look at all of the grandmasters. It's certainly becoming more common for people in the top 10 or the top 20 to have gotten their grandmaster titles when they were, 13, 14, 15. And of course, this is the crowd that Nakamura typically hangs out with, so he's basing it off of the people he sees. But let's just take a look at the numbers. Let's just take a look at the stats. So we have Hans Niemann's rise, and it was, this was the big, comment on Hans Niemann rise. The progress that he made between the time 2019, basically, and now. How in the world could he improve in these 2 years? From 2019, he was 24, 23, and then he made it up to, 2688, by, 2022. So that's actually closer to like a 3-year period. But people are kind of talking about how did he gain 200 points in a 2-year period, is what they're talking about. And how in the world did he do that at 17? Because nobody's supposed to be able to get better once they turn 17, because they're already old and over the hill, and this is apparently just totally impossible. So, as mentioned before, I played Sam Shanklin. This is Sam Shanklin's rating chart. Right here, this is Samuel Shanklin, USA, born, 1991. He's now 30 years old. World ranking number 31. He's got a 2712 rating. He's a grandmaster. Now, I played Samuel Shanklin back in 2008. I played him in the U.S. Championship qualifier. I think it was in, I played him in the U.S. Championship qualifier back in 2008. And at the time, he was 17. And I remember, playing him back then because we had around the same rating. It was, high 2200s. And I think it was 1 year later, he was rated like around 2,500. So from 2008 to 2009, when Sam Shanklin was 17 to 18, he gained a huge amount of rating points. It was 200 rating points, and that's a huge jump from 2,300 to 2,500 in 1 year. Is just a massive jump, especially at 17, when apparently you're supposed to be so over the hill that you can't get any better. And then, of course, he went on from 2,500. He didn't make as rapid of progress, but he still had some jumps in there, and he made that progression to, the 2,700 range, probably right around, he was already, in that ballpark, right, between like 2015 2016. So, 2009, it took him another, 4 or 5 years after that to get up there. But actually, even just from, if you look at this chart from 2009, even just from 2009 to 2011, another 2 years, he jumped from 2,500 to 2,600. And then, yeah, it took him a little longer to get from 2,600 to 2,700. But, he was making that jump in his 20s. So, 200 points in a year, 2,300 to 2,500, not unprecedented. So I know a lot of you are going to say, well, there's a big difference between going from 2,300 to 2,500 and going from, 2,500 to 2,700. Well, Sam isn't my only example. There's a lot of players. There's a lot of examples. So let's take a look at Richard Rapport. So Rapport, when he was 14, and I know that's quite a bit younger. He wasn't over the hill yet, but I'm getting to that. I've got other players here. So Rapport, when he was 14 back in, we're going to go all the way back to 2010. So he was rated about 2,500. Well, we got to go back to the edge of 2010 here. Go back down right in here somewhere, 2486 back in 2010. And we're going to go from 2010, and we're going to go ahead, 2 years to 2012? We've got over 2,600 in 2012. Actually, by the end of 2012, he was in the high 2,600s. So he went from the same jump, basically, that everybody's complaining about, that Hans made. Richard Rapport did it when he was 14. So Hans did it when he was 17, Rapport did it when he was 14. So let's look at another guy here, Jordan Van Forest. So also another guy that did this at 14, back in 2013. Jordan Van Forest was rated about 2,276, and he made a huge jump between 2013 and 2015. He made this huge jump up to the high 2,500s. So another 200, 300 point jump. In a 2-year time span, again, he made that huge jump when he was 14. So a lot of 200, 300 point jumps when people are 14. But what about people doing it when they're older, like 17, 18? Is there precedent for that? Because I keep hearing this over and over again, that this rating jump is unprecedented. Well, what about Mamanjarov? So Mamanjarov, way back here, you can see back in 2003, Mamanjarov's rating was 2,585 back in 2003. So let's look at the jump he made from 2003. And by the way, in 2003, Mamanjarov was 18 years old. So he was actually older than Hans Niemann. He was actually a year older. So we all know that once you're 18, your chess career is essentially over, and it's impossible to improve after that. So between 2003 and, let's say, 2005, he hit 2,700. So this is actually more suspicious than Hans Niemann's jump, because he did it when he was 1 year older, and he made the full 200-point gap and got all the way up to the 2,700s. So that's supposed to be completely impossible. And then he jumped up, oh no, this is really bad, Shock. We should check him for cheating. Because then 2 years after that, he jumped up to 2,757. That would have put him as a world elite player, which we all know is completely impossible after the age of 17. So let's take a look at Arjun, and unprecedented. So when Shock did it, it was also unprecedented. So this is another player, Arjun Irigassi from India. He's currently 19 years old. So when Arjun was 16 and 17 years old back in 2018, so we're going to go back to 2018 here. When he was 16 and 17 years old back in 2018, 2017, in 2017 he was rated 2,386. So let's just go 2017 to now. He's rated 2,732. So in 2018, he was about 16 or 17 years old. So how did he go from 2,386 to 2,732? And he's only 19 now. So this is somebody that's the same age. He's got a higher ranking than Hans Niemann. He made the jump as fast or faster. He actually made it from a lower rating in 2017. So, I don't know. This unprecedented rise seems to have a lot of precedence, even within the modern era. So, let's take a look at this guy. This guy right here from Vietnam, he is 31 years old. Well, when he was 16 or 17 back in 2007, so let's go back to 2007, he was rated 2,542. And then let's jump to 2010. We have him rated almost 2,700. So again, we have another jump of another player. of almost an identical age and nearly an identical jump in rating. So we're starting to see a pattern here. So what about, other precedents? Of course, I mean, we have precedents, outside of the modern era, of course. Like, I took most of these from the modern era, because if you jump back a little bit further, like, you've got guys that did it, like Gatakomsky did it. He had a 300-point gain, I think, in 1 year. Needless to say, this isn't unprecedented. Not only is it not unprecedented, it's not incredibly uncommon. It's certainly becoming more and more common that we see people making these jumps younger and younger, especially with the use of computers and the use of training and people having more access to computers and having more access to training. So the question becomes, if you did it at 17, why didn't you do it when you were, 13, 14, 15? And that's actually a really fair question. And, for most of the people that end up doing it a little bit later, that end up doing it when they're 16, 17, 18, it's usually for one of, 3 reasons that they didn't do it when they were younger. And none of them have to do with talent or the fact that they would have had the ability to do it when they were younger. Usually it has to do with the fact that either A, they didn't have access to good competition, so that will limit your skill level pretty significantly until you get access to good competition. Another one is B, maybe their family had, financial problems. Maybe they had problems in their home. Maybe they had, difficulties having a stable environment. So maybe their environment wasn't stable and they had other things going on. Those are probably the 2 biggest factors for people not making those big jumps when they're 13, 14, or 15. And of course, another one is some of these people started chess later. So like a lot of these elite players that make it when they're 13, 14, 15, they started chess when they were 5. Some people don't start chess till they're, Walter Brown famously didn't start chess till he was like 11 or 12. And I actually knew a player, Warren Harper, who was a really good friend of mine from Houston. He won the U.S. Junior Championship. When I met Warren Harper, he was 12 years old, and he had just started playing chess at 12 years old. And he had just learned how to move the pieces. So we're talking beginner, at 12 years old. And between the time he was 12 to 13, he had gone from just knowing how to move the pieces to 2,000. And between 13 and 14, he went from 2,000 to master to 2,200. And between 14 and 15, he went from 2,200 to 2,400. Between 14 and 15. So needless to say, if he had probably started the game of chess, 5 years earlier, he very easily would have gotten the Grandmaster title between the time he was, 13 and 14. But he started the game late, and then we see this rapid rise, when he starts the game late. So this is not a totally unprecedented rise. We have plenty of precedents within the modern era. Also, Hans Niemanns' rating chart isn't spectacular. We see a little bit of volatility here at the beginning. But if you just look at the pattern of the chart compared to other people that had approximately the same level at the same time at the same age, his chart looks perfectly normal. We see this normal kind of progression for a lot of these guys after they hit certain points. We see this normal rise up. And the volatility at the beginning is not abnormal either. People go through volatile moments in their careers. This is Vasily Ivanchuk. Incredibly volatile chart. One of my favorite players, by the way, but incredibly volatile player. Fluctuates from being the absolute best player that ever lived to, not quite being in the top 20 in the world, maybe even on a daily basis. So the guy fluctuates pretty wildly, but even, guys that we think of as very stable players, guys like Vishy Anand, they've had wild fluctuations, especially when they start getting older. Their chart is, sometimes all over the place, just depending on, kind of what they're going through. Another guy I really like, Sasha, Alexander Grishchuk, also has kind of a very erratic chart at times. So the chart doesn't look strange. The progress doesn't look strange. None of that looks strange. So I'm tired of hearing about the unprecedented growth. So I wanted to kind of put that to rest. It's not unprecedented. It is becoming less common as we move further and further into the modern era, but it's certainly not unprecedented growth. So now the last thing I want to talk about is why we're not hearing a statement being made from the tournament organizers or from Carlsen. So again, this is just an extrapolation of a theory that I have because I don't know any of these people and I haven't talked to any of these people, so I do not know. But if I had to guess, about why people wouldn't be making statements, it goes back to my theory on why Magnus Carlsen withdrew in the first place. So my theory on why Magnus Carlsen withdrew in the first place, or more accurately, my hypothesis on why he withdrew in the first place, is that he withdrew because, he made some requests to the tournament directors. He possibly requested a transmission delay, increased screenings, etc., because he was nervous that Hans Niemanns was cheating. And, they denied those requests. He played the game anyway. He lost the game. And then, he withdrew because the tournament organizers denied his requests. So in my mind, if this is what happened, if this is what went down, and then right after the tournament organizers went ahead and they started doing the enhanced screenings, etc., after Magnus Carlsen had withdrew, I want you to think about that situation in terms of how it makes people look and what they would be doing if they made a statement. So if Magnus Carlsen came out and made that statement and said, hey, this is what happened, yeah, we would all understand. But he's not just damaging his reputation, he's also making the organizers look bad, and he's making the St. Louis Chess Club look bad. So that's dangerous when you're making that kind of statement and you're making other people look bad. It makes you less likely to make the statement. And interestingly enough, the tournament organizers are also in that type of paradox. Nobody wants to get in trouble with their organizers, and nobody wants to get in trouble with the world champion because they might want to invite him to another event to attract people. So they wouldn't want to do the same thing, because if that's the case, Magnus Carlsen, just probably still shouldn't have withdrawn, because you either withdraw before you play the game, but you certainly don't withdraw after you've already played the game and your requests were denied. That's a breach of etiquette. So it makes Magnus Carlsen look bad as well. Just looking at the fact that he withdrew after the damage was done, after the game was already played. The time to withdraw is you make your requests, the request gets denied, and you say, okay, look, I made these requests, they got denied, I'm withdrawing from the event. And then you can make a public statement to that effect. Look, I made a request, they got denied, I withdrew. But I made a request, my request got denied, I played anyway, I lost, and then I withdrew. That's a breach of etiquette. So it's just like, the tournament organizers don't necessarily want to, make a statement, hey, this is what happened, because that's going to damage Carlsen's reputation as well as theirs. So if either side at this point makes a statement about this reality that I'm guessing is true, and again, this is just my guess, I don't know if this is true or not, it's quite possible that a statement made by either side will be damaging the reputation not just of themselves, but of the counterparty. So it's not likely that we're going to get a statement right away, until these two people get together and they talk it out and they come out with a joint statement, or they discuss what statement they're willing to make and, exactly what they need to say to kind of, make sure that everybody's reputation is still intact at the end of the day. So anyways, that's my kind of running theory on what happened. That's my hypothesis about what went down and why we're not hearing, anything from either side. I think they're both in kind of a delicate situation, PR-wise, where depending on what they say, they could hurt each counterparty's reputation. So they're trying to be very careful about that. We'll probably get a statement eventually, but I don't see it necessarily happening in the very near term, although I do hope that those two parties can get together and they can come out with a joint statement, and I hope that we can see one in the near term so that we can finally put this thing to rest and we can all move on with our lives. So anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. If you're new to my channel, please check out the rest of the videos on my channel. I do a lot of great stuff on openings and games preparation and a lot of different stuff that will really help you with your game. Thank you very much for watching.